Welcome to SandCity Sports. How we doing? All right, okay. Immediately I can see there's a little slight issue with the shot, which I'm going to go ahead and get up and correct immediately. Correct the shot immediately, and we're going to go from there. Learn something new every day. All right. All right, I'm back. And the shot got worse. What's going on, Emmett? I'm here. And I got one more correction. I'm going to get it right this time. Not the best opening. It is what it is. All right, goodness gracious. Figuring this thing out. All right. This guy can come here. It's like a game of peekaboo. Starts. I'm here. I leave. I'm back. All right, but now I'm back for good. Let's get it going. So much to get to. Emmett, you're welcome to join if you like. We're going to be getting in some NFL. Got some NBA moves in terms of leadership. Talk some MLB. Hope everybody is, right? You learn something new every day. And telling you to start things out. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's again. See Emmett's in the building. Got a chance to call the midnight hour last night. Bernie does a very good job. Emmett was also in the mix. Solid. Okay. So across the board, we're good. I hope you're good out there in television land. Let's get the volume straightened out. Oh, yeah. Welcome to SandCity Sports, folks. To the business. I am your host. Kid that artist formerly known as Andre Payton. You know this is SandCity Sports. We're here to bring you on the sports perfect stories that you need to know. Come on and lock in with your boy. I know there's a lot of talent, a lot of great programming going on tonight. We run the intro back again. Give your boy a chance. Lock in the SandCity Sports for a few. See what you think. Go! We're going to talk about the NFL and what teams are gearing up for. NBA. Teams are positioning. We have some whales out there in the high seas. I'm talking about young people. Uncertain. We'll check in with MLB, see how the pennant races are going. Hey! We are here. But folks, we're going to start in the NBA. A move was made In the Central Division for the Eastern Conference, Chicago Bulls locking up Billy Donovan for the foreseeable future. On the face of it, it doesn't appear to be headline news. For me, it's significant because Billy Donovan can coach. Billy Donovan, can I call him an elite coach? No, I cannot. Because the Chicago years have not reflected what he achieved when he's in Oklahoma City. Nonetheless, Billy Donovan came into the NBA, as I noted previously, throwing haymakers. You will remember. We're going to leave the scenery up there for a minute or three. You'll remember his Oklahoma City team. What's going on, Chris? Welcome, welcome. The weekend's been good. We're starting off talking a little NBA. A move made by the Bulls, which I agree with firmly, to have continuity on their roster, even though it hasn't been the sunniest of skies. Speaking of the weekend, Chris, good. Saturday, Sunday, both good days. A little bit of a pause there because the weather cooperated for the most part, but we had some rain that came in and got into the mix today. So I was refereeing out in Dennis. Good outdoor playground, old school games, and the rain just wouldn't quit. Played through it, court dried up, rained again. Played through it, court dried up, rained again. Played through it, and then by the time the third game was, in the second half, about 10 minutes remaining, the rain just made the courts untenable. Okay, the Sox. Right? What is this? Post Devers, they stabilized, and now, they're in the hunt. They're in the conversation. Let me see where they are in the AL East. Let's get the standings up. Check on the Sox real quick. 2 games back of the Yankees. 7 back of the Blue Jays. Right? They're in the hunt. They're not far. Blue Jays have a league leading 63 wins. Red Sox at 57. So, this pennant race is going to heat up as we move through the summer and when we get into that fall baseball. Now, am I saying that the Red Sox are going to leapfrog the Jays or the Yankees? Can't go that far. I can say it's promising that the young Lions Judge going to be out for a time. I think the Yankees, he's Aaron Judge, so you don't replace an MVP candidate. So we'll have to take a look and see how long that injury is and how, we can't understate what he means to the Bronx Bombers and baseball writ large as a face of Major League Baseball. So that, if you were intimating that Judge being out could allow the Red Sox to, and granted, they're only 2 games back, so they're right there in striking distance. I can see it. IL, that means he's going to be out for up to 10 days. He's not a day-to-day. He's on the IL, so he's going to sit. So the Yankees have to step up their production. Be interested to see what let me just go ahead and get that right quick. See what elbow issue. A flexor right flexor strain. Okay. Right. Boone says he's going to miss the minimum of 10 games, right? That reminds me, let's get him some midsummer rest. Sox did this in the Manny Ramirez years, where they just shut Manny down around this time of the season. Maybe this is a little bit earlier. I remember Manny kind of like in August, like the dog days of August. Manny would go and sit. UCL strain. Certainly don't want to play around with these things. Okay, affect your swing. Affect your, baseball. Obviously, a lot. It's rhythm, consistency. Mechanics. I think it's reassuring that, it's just going to be a 10-day stint. Rest him. Allow him to rejuvenate. Come back mid-August, ready to go into the race to begin to end the summer, and begin the fall. On that point, and we'll talk about Mr. Donovan, as in Billy, him coming back to the Bulls. Why I think that's significant, even though the Chicago Bulls have been a backwater franchise the last few years. Okay. I had to screen what's going on here, and I lose track of where there we go. So as I said, relative to the Yankees, 4-6 in their last 10. Sox 5-5. Right? Jays are hot, 8-2. Okay. Tampa is creeping. 4 games off the pace. All right, so this top 4 in the AL East, right, even though it's 10 games between the Rays and the Jays, 1, 2, and 3, 6.5 back. That's nothing. Sox get hot, Yankees get hot. They can make that up. Obviously, there's going to be league play, so you can make those wins up in a 3-game matchup. You go 3-0. Okay, you can leapfrog a team. Again, I'm gonna I feel like it's a year early for the Red Sox. It's good. They're right there. Am I saying that they should? Well, obviously, they're going to go all out and see where the chips may fall. I'm simply establishing that it won't, to me, be a disappointment if this team this year doesn't make the playoffs. Next year, different story. Okay, these young guys have now full training camp. There's a clear direction for what the team wants to achieve up to and including the playoffs. I'm talking about the Red Sox 2026. Okay, 25, pleasantly surprised. 26, no. We want to reestablish our claim to the top of the AL East. No. As far as I'm concerned, I personally like Alex Cora. And the reason I'm going to say no, not just because the Red Sox brought him back, stood by him through the Astros cheating scandal. Okay? He's been with the team through different leadership, different general managers. Obviously, John Henry still owns the team, but I think the Cora decision I don't think. It's ultimately John Henry's decision. And if John Henry's going to take this guy back because of the type of manager that he was before the Astros debacle, I think this is the manager of the Boston Red Sox for the foreseeable future. Okay, and then if anything, and I'm Alex Cora, I might be trying to never mind looking at Billy Donovan and what his situation is with the Bulls. If I'm Alex Cora, I might want an extension. Say, hey, we start the season. Devers, Bregman made these moves. We're going to mix it up and, got the veterans, got the young guys. And then less than halfway through the season, completely change of scenario. Right? So had the Red Sox tanked and end up at the bottom of the AL East this year with the disruption that took place, obviously it's Boston, so folks are going to pile on. But in their heart of hearts, I think people are saying we mortgaged the present in favor of the future. Okay, there's not really much sentiment, never mind how things have worked out for Devers on the left coast and him having issues out there just like he had here in Boston. That narrative has been submerged behind, as I said, the pleasant surprise that the Red Sox are in the mix. They're in the hunt. These win streak people, okay, yeah. Got back on board. You lose some games, but you battle it out with the defending World Series champions. It's bittersweet with Mookie. You look at him and you say, oh, man, wins it with the Dodgers. Could he have, been the centerpiece for a Red Sox championship team? But a good question about Cora. I'm not going to say he's Teflon. I'm not going to say he's bulletproof. But he's got a lot of support in Boston. And I think he's done, beyond the support, he's done a good job. He's done a Doc Rivers type of a job. Okay, people don't give Doc a lot of credit. He has those 3-1 leads that he has blown, but he continues to be on the sidelines for NBA teams. Year in and year out. Takes wants to get away, or, okay, it's not working in Philadelphia. You want to go in a different direction, different voice, fine. I'll take a year or two in a broadcast booth. He was there for like 3 months. Coach Doc Rivers. And then he's right back on the hot seat with a team, with a first team, with a team that has a MVP, a perennial MVP candidate, and a perennial all-star. But no stability, no culture, no vision. And does Doc Rivers take the Milwaukee Bucks and restore them to being a championship contender? No, he doesn't. But he stabilizes the ship, which for me is worth its weight in gold. Now, okay, the Bucks tried to strike lightning in a bottle, doing something I would never recommend, i.e. trading Drew Holiday. Said it before, I'll say it again and again and again and again and again, because he's a winner. So when Drew leaves, your edge to being a winner leaves with him. Okay? People want to mistake Drew Holiday's kindness for weakness. Those people, some of whom reside in the Commonwealth, are going to learn the hard way. Folks in Milwaukee have learned that lesson over the last 2 years. You took Drew for granted. And now you have your quote-unquote 2 superstars who together, kind of a Shaq and Kobe perception. Not to compare Dame and Giannis to Shaq and Kobe in any way, shape, or form. But the idea is, okay, Drew, he gives us A, B, C, and he's a stat stuffer. He's a good locker room guy, but Dame is Dame. Dame Dollar. Dame is a closer. All of those things are true. And you can say Dame is better than Drew if we're going to go pound for pound. I go in the other direction. If you ask me who would I rather have, Dame or Drew, I'm taking Drew. And I'm not trying to get into a Dame versus Drew conversation. Folks, you're more than welcome to weigh in on that. I know we got the baseball stats up. We're going to get back to baseball. We're going to get back to baseball. We're talking about culture and stability and winning. Talking about wins and losses. Let's connect the dots here. Okay, back to Doc Rivers. So again, respect on Drew Holiday's name, folks. I said what I said. I said you have Dame on one hand, Drew on the other hand. I'm taking Drew. Yes, Dame, the better offensive player. To me, Drew is the better all-around player. Okay, and what I'm establishing about Doc Rivers is that he took a volatile situation because Dame wanted to be in Miami. And Giannis was expecting to compete for a championship. Giannis is expecting the leadership to make this work, to convince Dame, just like the people in Toronto convinced Kawhi to buy in to being in the Frozen North. With Adrian Griffin, Dame wasn't so persuaded, shall we say. It wasn't working for him. His body language, his energy was off. I was just thinking about it today. He ain't have no Big Earn energy. Shout out to Big Earn. We got to get Big Earn on the screen. And we'll come back to the statistics. We got to get Big Earn. Hold on. Not great. I'm staying on this point, and we're bringing it back to the original question about Alex Cora. Where's he at? Yes, sir. We're going to stop sharing over here. I'm back. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, we're going to skip that ad. That's Big Earn energy, folks. Big Earn McCracken. Shout out to Kingpin. 90s. 90s Bill Murray. Small world that it is. I actually went to elementary school with Bill Murray's son. Growing up in the tri-state area, I went to elementary school in New York, Rockland County, and Bill Murray's son was in my second grade class. So just walking around my elementary school, I used to see Bill Murray just, how you doing, kid? I remember I was hyperactive, then and now. And I was like, I gotta, I need a drink. I asked teacher, can I get a drink? I just want to move around. And I go out, I didn't really, I just need to shake a leg. And I go out in the hallway, I'm feeling, oh yeah, I got out of class. I'm so smooth, cool, go get a drink. And so I'm walking this way down the hallway. Bill Murray's walking this way down the hallway. He dropped off his son. I was like, how you doing, Bill? I was like, how you doing, kid? Another one of, as they say, right? I talk about Sandu, the respect I have for Sandler, how you just talk to people. He's approachable. He's down to earth. He doesn't big time folks. Very generous. And so many stories about Bill Murray are that way. If anybody, he's kind of doesn't do the big films as much anymore. He'll kind of do this film here, do this film there. They talk about like he doesn't carry around his cell phone, and people that want to call him for projects, they can't get a hold of him. They got to call his agent. His agent doesn't even have his number. There's all these things you have to go through to catch up with them. Big fan of Chicago sports. But those, I look back on it, and just two little quick stories before we get back to big earn energy, which is a real thing, folks. We're talking big earn energy. Well, segue, we're talking about Bill Murray here. First little funny story is for the baseball games, because he had two sons. One was my age, one was a little bit younger. And so he'd be there for their baseball games. And he'd be in this like old school, it was like a blue Volkswagen Bug. It wasn't beat up, but it just looked like a regular car, nothing fancy. And he'd just be there sitting, chilling, eating watermelon, spitting seeds with one son, watching the other son's game. Nobody bothered him. It was just that Bill Murray. And he just the most unassuming, like the it's like the characters that he plays. Like, if you've seen the film Lost in Translation, it's like he's just himself. The way that he comes off on camera, just this low-key, easygoing, humorous guy, like that's how he moves through the world. And the other quick little funny story before we get back to sports is, I think we were in third grade, and his son was walking around. He had that's when Scrooge was out, so he had the Scrooge jacket, which I guess was his dad's jacket. He's wearing it, walking around the Scrooge. I was like, oh my God, is it that? And so his son goes in his pocket, and pulls out a $50 bill. He's like, oh my goodness, that's so much money. It's unbelievable. Like $50, it's like, when you pay like 50, again, this is the 90s. This is the early 90s. So gas is $1.07, right? $50. You're like, oh my, it was mind-boggling. But shout out to Bill Murray. Shout out to Big Earn. We're getting back to Alex Cora, okay? Drew Holiday didn't bring no Big Earn energy to the Bucks. He wasn't thrilled to be there. And so I talk about Doc Rivers. He comes into a situation, never mind that they were 34-12, top of the Eastern Conference. Okay, but there's a difference between being a good coach and being a good manager of these supersized egos. Giannis, Dame, championship expectations. And so what Doc has always done a good job of is he can come in and just get through to star players. This is the way it's going to be. This is how we're doing things. I know you're Kevin Durant. I know you're Paul Pierce. I know that you're Ray Allen. All-Stars, Hall of Famers, the whole 9 yards. I'm Doc Rivers from the Chi. I'm going to respect you. I'm going to talk to you like an adult. And you treat me with that same respect. Doc Rivers is adroit. He is skilled with establishing respect and the lines and how things are going to be for star players. So that these last 2 years, even though early on there was rumblings, damn, Giannis isn't happy. And those rumblings are still there. Yeah, they made some moves. The Miles Turner thing doesn't faze me. That's more of a slap in the face for the fans of Indiana. That doesn't, and a lot of other people. Okay, Miles Turner, he's good, got a good efficiency. That doesn't make you a contender. Again, it just shows that teams are cheap. The Pacers, yes, the Pacers, you're cheap. Championships occur in the luxury tax. You made it to the finals. You wanted to stick to your quote-unquote model. Good luck making it again. You did it to yourself. If you run it back, I know Halliburton's hurt, but you can still be in the conversation at the top of the Eastern Conference. Never mind because teams are injured because you're the Pacers and you knocked the block off. You knocked the number 1 seed. Yes, they had injuries, but that series was not competitive. Didn't even go 7. So you bring back your full team, you're again a threat to make it back to the finals. You don't even bring back your full team because your analytics people say we can't go into luxury tax. Get out of here. Been 25 years since they made the finals. With that mentality, we'll see you in another 25. 2050. Okay, when the AI revolution, the rise of the machines, right, the brave new world. Okay, we'll check back with the Pacers then. But vis-a-vis the Bucks, Miles Turner, all right. Cole Anthony, nice move. These are good, solid moves, i.e. the Bulls, and we will get to them with Billy Donovan bringing him back. But Miles Turner and Cole Anthony do not, to me, make the Bucks the favorites in the Eastern Conference with all the instability there. They're nice moves. They're not power moves. Okay? A power move is right, bringing in an all-star level player. Right? The previous 2 years, all that stuff that was boiling, simmering to a boil, that's now been exposed because Dame, all right, we tried it. It didn't work. We're starting over. Does Giannis want to start over? Is he that loyal to the soil? He might be. I'm of a mind to say Golden State. These are your prime years. You want to compete for a championship? You can do that in Golden State. Yourself, Chef Curry, Jimmy Butler. All right. Now we're talking about something. Does it automatically put you ahead of Oklahoma City and Houston? No, it doesn't. But we're talking about something. With the Bucks and Cole Anthony and Miles Turner and Kyle Kuzma and Bobby Portis, maybe your top 3 just because the conference is injured and teams made moves to break up dynasties. But other teams have made moves as well. So do I like the Magic or do I like the Milwaukee Bucks as constituted? I like the Orlando Magic. Atlanta, getting Jalen Johnson back, bringing in Crispy P with their rookies, Quinn Snyder, his system. I like Atlanta. 76ers, will they stay healthy? Who knows? If they are healthy, I like the Sixers. The Knicks, don't know who they are. Mike Brown come in to do the same things Tom Thibodeau did with pats on the back and possibly a new system. Right, the Bucks are a middling team. Okay, but there was no soap opera. All the way back to Alex Cora. Does Alex Cora bring the big earn energy? He does, quietly. Okay, Alex Cora has a Terry Francona, who the Red Sox should have never gotten rid of in the first place. Talking about chicken wings and beer in the locker room. By the way, when they got rid of Francona, who's gone on and has been a playoff level manager since he's left the Red Sox in Cleveland. Should have never left Boston in the first place. Now, okay, they left, they brought in some other managers and they figured it out, but you had a good manager who's proven to be a good manager since he left. Okay. I like that about the Knicks. I'll conclude with my point about Francona. They had 2 outs and 2 strikes against the Orioles. I remember in that game 5, 2 outs, 2 strikes, twice. And the Orioles slapped hit after hit. It was a convergence. They come back, they win that game. But if they get that third strike, that third out, and close out the series against the Orioles, would there anybody be worrying about beer and chicken in the locker room? I think not. Okay. Point is, you're heaping the blame on coaches unnecessarily. What's the point? Back to the original question about Alex Cora. Alex Cora, like he has that quiet, affirming, strong presence. He knows baseball, however much he's able to actually make decisions versus the analytics gonna run amok. So he's a good manager. And again, we got Big Earn up there talking about Big Earn energy. Shout out to Bill Murray. Shout out to positive vibes and what they mean to a team, to an individual in life. Big Earn energy, good energy. Cora is going nowhere. We're gonna slide over to the NBA. Chris, per usual, with the good points of emphasis to get to. Okay. So I see this holding. And I would be surprised if the Red Sox, even though the Yankees are injured, are able to leapfrog them. But correct me if I'm wrong. Just want to go over to the National League, which mirrors the American League. Nobody running away with it. Dodgers 61, Cubs and the Brewers in the mix. Mets and the Phillies in the mix. My point of fact with this is clearly the Dodgers and the Red Sox are at 2 different points in the development. Dodgers are defending champions, trying to go back to back. Red Sox are trying to find a spark, and something to build on for next year and the year after that. But this narrative about teams, i.e. the Dodgers, who are absolutely loaded, saying to themselves, look, okay, we're not going to try to win 120 games, 130. We're not going to just try to sprint from the beginning, and set some world record for the season. We're trying to get hot at the right time, i.e. the playoffs, as they did last year, and just like a hot knife through butter, getting it done. So could the Dodgers, if they wanted to go all out, win 110, 15, 20? My view, yes, they're just loaded. But this idea of pacing yourself over the course of the marathon so that, again, in October, home field advantage is important, no doubt about it, but we are locked in. and we have it down to a science. That's load man. Excuse me. That's analytics that I can dig. It's certainly not tanking. They're not, trying to lose games, which there's reports, there's rumblings, and I already made it clear, folks. Arch Manning is that dude, and you're gonna learn if you haven't. You're gonna find out this year. Heisman Trophy, #1 overall pick. Yeah, Arch. Chip off the old block. Okay, so Eli, Payton, you're gonna get to meet Arch. He's that dude. Okay, I don't always. Sometimes people say he's him. I don't always use that, but he's that dude. But you're hearing some rumblings at the March for Arch. Certain teams are saying, teams that include the Cleveland Browns, who I don't think should be in this situation because their defense is so just fearsome. Saw a picture of Myles Garrett just walking around training camp. Myles Garrett looks like anybody out there seen the Fantastic Four? I've heard good reports. Anybody seen the Fantastic Four? Myles Garrett looks like he could just be in the Fantastic Four as himself. No costume, no, just Myles Garrett playing Myles Garrett. The disagreement is with what, Chris? So my view of Cleveland, it's a catch-22 because their team, like you don't make Myles Garrett the second highest paid player, the second highest non-quarterback in the league, and not believe that your defense is good enough to win. And Joe Flacco to be a game manager on your offense, for your offense, are they more talented? They're not more talented than the Ravens, but few teams are. They're not as talented offensively, obviously, as the Bengals, but the Bengals are one-dimensional. I'm interested in what your disagreement is. The quandary that I see for the team like the Browns is, okay, so you essentially tank. The NFL is different than other leagues. If you just lose every single game and teams, oh, interesting. I'd like to hear why. You're not so big on Arch Manning. I'm just going to say right now, my view is Arch Manning is much better. I'm not going to put a number to it, but Arch Manning is on a different level than Quinn Ewers. So the idea that Quinn Ewers, Arch, quote unquote, could not beat out Quinn Ewers for the starting quarterback job, I take a different approach to this. I take the Pittsburgh Steelers view, meaning it was a part of the plan that Arch is going to go there the first year, learn from Ewers. Okay, do the essentially the redshirt year. I don't think the Manning family thought Ewers was going to come back after that first year. But he comes back for the second year. Now it's like, okay, so what do we do? Now we have two quarterbacks. But Quinn has been there. He's established. Do we now give it to Arch and now Quinn, you're coming back really to sit on the bench? Or do we just keep it going as is? We know that Arch is going to be there for at least 3 years, if not 4. And I see that as a compromise. Arch did come in some games mid-season. Why didn't he play the bigger high school? Because he's a Manning. So Mannings are going to be loyal to the soil. Mannings are going to do it the same way Elijah Arenas did it. Okay? We're not going to a prep school to have, you be a part of an all-star team And you're not going to go to Montvert with 3 other first-round picks. I feel that it's just tradition. This is where right. Okay. You want to go to Don Bosco? You want to go to Modern Day? You want to do what Todd Marinovich did? Shout out to the Marinovich Project. 30 for 30 goal. Check it out. Go ahead and check out the Marinovich Project. But Todd Marinovich was the son of an NFL player in Marv. He wasn't the son of a Hall of Fame player. So with Arch not going to a big school for me, and again, folks, he was the overwhelming, undisputed number 1 player in the country. There was no, okay, he went to a small school. He's not really playing any competition. We're not sure. There's question marks. We're going to put this other player ahead of him. No, he came into college football like John Elway, like Andrew Luck, like his uncle Payton. He was clear number 1 prospect. And for me, the reason that I am bullish on Arch Manning is because he's shown the willingness to trust the process while being, to me, the better player. I think there was a compromise last year and they went with Quinn because Arch and his people were willing to continue to trust the process and grow and develop. With the possibility, I think, for me, Arch is going to light the world up this year and go to the NFL. But he's a Manning. And with this whole NIL paying the players, never mind, Payton stayed without NIL and making $6 or $7 million. Arch is already making NFL money. Hold on here. I got to double check this. I'm almost positive that he makes more than Quinn Ewers in NIL, which in and of itself should tell okay. So Quinn turned down an $8 million deal. Which is interesting. That's an interesting point. Quinn could have made $8 million in NIL, but decided to go to the NFL and make only $4 million. I respect Breer. I'm not coming off my point though. I'm 10 toes down on Arch. Breer solid, does a great job on the herd. And in other places. Not that I'm anywhere, I'm all in on Arch. Okay, and this perception that Ewers was the better Arch could not beat Quinn Ewers out, I say he was willing to trust the process, get all his money, learn, and then shine this year and possibly shine next year. Just, I don't, the theory behind it, never mind the fact that the money is more in college than it is in the NFL. That's a whole nother ball of wax, but that's not my point. I don't think it would come down to money. I think it comes down to the process and how he, Arch, the Mannings, do things. So thinking about it, I'm going to lean towards Arch staying at Texas another year and staying in college for the full 4 years as others, and never mind his family, have done, and not rushing this in any way, shape, or form. Because if he was rushing it, He would have said, and then, folks, let's not act as if Texas was the only school that Arch Manning could have gone to. Sarkisian's there. Sarkisian knows his business offensively. All right, so he's learning. We have a Reed Mahomes situation. But if Arch and the Mannings were about getting the bag and getting in front of television, and doing his 3 years and then blasting off for the number 1 overall pick, he could have went to any other school than Texas and played, started, made some mistakes, balled out. Okay, that's my view on this. They're old school, so they're doing it the old school way. They're not skipping steps. They're saying to themselves, yeah, he could go out. I mean, he's not losing, honestly, anything in terms of his development. Did Steve Young get worse those years playing behind Joe Montana? Or was he just waiting to burst onto the scene and be the Hall of Fame player that he was? That's different, right? Because this is in the NFL now. So, Steve, we lost some years. Honestly, I would have preferred to have Steve Young play somewhere else and ball out and be a Pro Bowler, and then get traded, or go to the Niners in free agency. But the idea that anything was lost. Not familiar with this young man? Let me go ahead and look him up. Let me go ahead and look this young man up. Briefly. Yeah, Steve Young made some money. But I don't like the fact that, he was behind Joe Montana all those years instead of balling out and helping another team. Okay, he's on the, sophomore at let's get Mr. Sellers up on the screen as we keep moving and grooving here. And this is speaking to my point right here, Chris. That if Arch wanted to go this route, he could have gone this route. Go somewhere, play right away, get the publicity, so on and forth. But I think the conversation now, Sellers is a sophomore, so he's got another year. Arch is going to be a junior, so he can blast off. We are going to see. I'm telling you, out there in television land, what I see is Arch Manning lighting up the Ohio State Buckeyes to start the season. Ohio State and Texas, number 1 and number 2, they're playing the first game. And Arch is going to light them up. That's going to be Arch's coming out party. All right? Now, that's what. Good game, back and forth. It can go either way. I'm not putting, Ohio State, defending national champions, got hot in the playoffs like a hot knife through butter. Okay? coming in as like an 8th seed because of the losing to Michigan and all the rest of that stuff, and then peaked at the right time, weren't to be denied, won the Natty. Okay. They got Arch, first game of the season. Arch has been preparing for this for 2 years. Respectfully, Buckeyes. Buckeyes, by the way, are delicious. Grandmother used to make Buckeyes for the new year. Chocolate with the peanut butter in them. Just absolutely delicious. Used to send them, one of the things like they send them, some of the joys of my childhood years. But not to start the season, folks. So we will revisit this take. But I have Arch starting the year like he finishes the year. Just out there, gunslinger, getting it done. Okay, and the whispers that are being heard, and he's not this, he's not that. My view, he's trusting the process. He could have done it like most do it. I'm the number 1 overall prospect. I'm going somewhere. I'm securing a huge bag in NIL. I'm playing from day one, getting my reps. Yeah, I'll make some mistakes, but by and large, you're going to see the talent. Going to have gaudy statistics. In this brave new world, which needs to be reeled in terms of the transfer portal, these guys skip to another school next year, skip to another, they keep bouncing around, i.e. Beck, who's at Miami now for an absurd amount of money. Can't blame him. But they get the highest dollar. Their teams win. Their draft status continues to elevate. And, when it's time to go, they go. And now they can stay and make more money and leave on their terms. Fine. But Arch doing it quietly, in anonymity, off the radar. Buckeyes start the season. You're the Buckeyes, but bullseye. You're in the crosshair. I think Arch lights them up. We'll come back to this. All right. Let's get we finished with Major League Baseball. I want to go over to the NBA. Touch on the Billy Donovan deal, and then kind of connect that to some of the previous points made about the outlook in the Eastern Conference. So let's get Billy on the screen. And this, right? It's an important deal. And I'm going to tell you why. Right. The reporting is that this Ohio State team is just ridiculous. Might have a game manager at quarterback, like a Mac Jones type of a player, to just guide the ship. But the talent on both sides of the ball, per usual, at a program like Ohio State, is off the charts. Ryan Day showed what he can do with a quarterback who's not first round grade. Ryan Day, obviously an offensive guy, but with just elite weapons. That was the formula for Natty last year. So I can't argue with it. I just feel this year, with a team that has ridiculous weapons and odds-on favorite number 1 pick at quarterback, I'm going with that group. Good question. Not huge in terms of a team in college. Back in the day, Fab Five, rooted for them. College football, I follow more players and teams is what I can say. We don't have dominant football in the Northeast. It's been 30 some odd years since Boston College upset Notre Dame, and back when the writers decided who the national champion was. And then Boston College made the ridiculous decision to go to the ACC and chase a bag, and it hasn't worked whatsoever. They're just a doormat in the ACC in football and basketball. Should have stayed in the Big East. Right? So, Travis Hunter, I rocked with him last year. Root for Colorado. So I don't, more if I see a player that I'll kind of gravitate. Yep. And Boston College produces NFL players. You'll see some guys that come through, and whether linebacker over here, tight end over there. It's not as though Boston College is doing nothing in the ACC, but they don't have those signature wins that they did when they were an upstart team in a secondary football conference, but a conference that they more so belonged in. That's a larger question about college football essentially becoming professional. College, becoming professional, like the minor leagues, and mirroring the NFL in every way, shape, or form. When you look at like the SEC and the Big Ten, just taking over every single, these regional rivalries are gone. All comes down to the TV money. This is a further point about how college sports has just, these conferences don't even make any sense. You got Texas and Oklahoma and the SEC now. You're just going to have these two super conferences that, what was it? I think every SEC team got $50 million. So the schools sign up because they want that portion of the TV revenue. But you're not, like, the Boise State angle is gone. Boise State, mid-major, growing where they're planted, can always break through, get into the Final Four, the 8-team dance. Now it's 8, so you got some of these quote-unquote lower seeded. They're not mid-majors, they're Power 5 schools, but they're not the predominant Power 5 schools. Again, my point, these upstart teams, not only did they not break through by and large in the tournament when they had to play against the perennial powers, but being in the same conference as these perennial powers and just getting beaten down. Talk about Clemson going into the SEC. Great. You're not winning in the ACC. Florida State, go to the SEC, you get all these matchups and your TV money goes up. You might be better off dominating the ACC and going into the college football tournament with some momentum versus a secondary team after Alabama, Georgia, and whoever else. So a further point, transfer portal, number one issue in college athletics, and then conference realignment. Second to that. everybody trying to be with the preeminent powers, whether it be Ohio State in the Big Ten or Alabama and Georgia in the SEC, it's not really good for everybody else. Been seeing good things from the Qs. One of the local guys here in the Cape played. One of the local guys here in the Cape played for them. Excuse me. Excuse me again. But that's my point. Syracuse and the ACC is still what it is. Before we talk about all this conference alignment, can Syracuse at least win an ACC championship? Right? So they're up and coming. All right, they're gonna, can Syracuse handle a North Carolina team led by Bill Belichick? Can they beat a Clemson? Can they possibly beat a Florida State? Like, those would be good wins, and those would be opportunities for a conference that's not the SEC and Big Ten to get stronger. Because it's not the end of the world if Syracuse beats Florida State. Florida State can still make the tournament. They can still win the national championship, i.e. Ohio State. But now the ACC has, instead of just 2 preeminent teams, now they got 3. Now they got 4. Now they got 5. They got 6. Clemson, Dabo taking this stance about not poaching players. Let's talk about that for a second. And yes, we are going to get back to the Bulls and Billy Donovan and teams that trust the process and teams that don't. Clemson has fallen off the pace. They're not a championship favorite as they were 5, 7 years ago. Dabo's taking this stance about, I don't poach players. Well, then you don't live in the modern age. And it's not poaching players, it's a free market. This is what happened with Coach K at Duke when the one and done revolution took place, and he wanted to do it the old school way, which I respect. And all that did is allow John Calipari to get a championship and John Calipari to just add to his, exaggerated, firmly established at number 1 list of NBA prospects, right? That's how John Calipari can get a Karl Anthony Towns and a Devin Booker, on the same team with the Harris twins, Tyler Euler. You can have 9 All-Americans on a team, which, by the way, they shouldn't have lost to Wisconsin that year. Neither here nor there. But then Coach K looked around and he said, okay, the paradigm has shifted. I need to shift. I have, and this was incentive for Coach K to stay longer with the Team USA program. Why? Because he gets first dibs vis-a-vis the Team USA program with the stars of tomorrow, the all-stars of the future, who the Team USA program handpicks when they're 13, 14, 15, 16, bringing them into the system so that we can win the gold in U17, which people don't really pay attention to, but that's not just the all-stars of the future, but that's our Olympic team of the future as well. So Coach K brought stability and winning back to Team USA, but he stays longer because now this gives me access to the Zion Williamsons and the RJ Barretts and the Jaleel Okafers, on and on and on and on. He changed with the times. Dabo, you're saying Clemson is reloaded? I'll believe it when I see it. Because rejecting NIL in the transfer portal is what plays Clemson, to me, outside the top 20. Never mind the zero tolerance that I have for all these coaches who are the highest paid employees in the state. Talking about NIL and how it's quote unquote ruining college sports. And we have an executive order, which another ball of wax. President wants to be involved in all these things. Can he do it? Yes. Is it the best leadership? Maybe. Does it help him politically? Probably. But will it, bottom line, in terms of NIL, change anything? I don't think so. But specific to Dabo and his team that's reloaded this year, yeah, we'll see, because everybody else is reloaded. Because it's a one-year proposition. College sports is 1 year. Everything is one and done. Is that the best scenario? No. Is Charlie Baker trying to get his arms around this? Yes. Do we need one transfer and then you sit out a year? Yes. Your first transfer, good. I'm not for the old way where you have to sit out a year. You can transfer once, and then you sit out a year, the next one. And I would say sit out, 2 years is not really realistic, but you have to sit. That is needed so that it's not musical chairs. I was talking to a coach recently who noted, never mind, because a lot of, with the preps, with the young guys coming up here, everybody wants to go to prep school to say they went to prep school and, wear the jersey, and I went to this elite. I'm a guy, I went to prep school for academics. I kind of saw what it was. Went to Winchington, which played schools like Brewster Academy back in the day. Brewster was not what it is now. Brewster, into full disclosure, Brewster is now on the Nike circuit. They are a New England, old school New England prep school, but they play on the Nike circuit. Nike has essentially just taken their summer circuit and just made that year round. The Brewster Academies, the Montverts, the Link Academy. This is essentially the minor leagues. Let's keep it at 100. Never mind the NIL money, which these guys can get. It's essentially the minor leagues. But I'm saying in the good old days, before the sneaker companies took over everything, you still had all of this talent at these prep schools, but it was confined to New England. Yeah, they'd play some games out of the region, but you had to go to New England to get that postgraduate year, right? Because if you went to JUCO, that's 2 years of your eligibility gone. The connecting point is talking to a brother official and coach. Now you can go to JUCO for 2 years and still get 4 years of college. So essentially 6 years of college eligibility and NIL funds. Don't have a huge issue with that. Don't know if but it does rub me the wrong way that some of these starting lineups in college, that the Oklahoma City starting lineup was younger than the North Carolina starting lineup the year after they went to the championship game. The starting lineup of Oklahoma City was younger, or the team, Oklahoma City was a younger team than North Carolina. After Hubert Davis took them to the Natty and knocked Coach K out in a very bittersweet. To lose your final game, to lose in the Final Four, to lose to Carolina. I'm telling you, sports, right? Tom Izzo said the highs are very high, the lows are very low. It'll humble you, for sure. Okay, again, specific to the point of Clemson. Let's get Dabo up on the screen. And we are going to go back. Billy Donovan is in the mix. Check the socials. Goodness gracious. Socials are good. Twitter is good. We're moving and grooving, folks. Like, comment, subscribe. You heard it here first. Go ahead and jump in the comments. If you have something, mi casa, su casa, let's keep it moving and grooving because we're cooking with some oil now. Talking about college sports, we are going to get to the NBA, Billy Donovan. But let's talk about let's get Dabo up there for you. This is the teacher in me. Anybody know where Dabo? Chris, do you remember where Dabo played his college football? Not that this is Jeopardy, putting things in the form of a question. Where Dabo played his college ball? Okay. Thank you. So the article in Forbes, okay, we're on the same page. Yeah, Chris is on it. Bama. He's a Bama boy. Dabo, you gotta, just like Coach K. All right. And to Chris's point, and to the greater point, connecting it back to Duke, what we saw this year with Jon Scheyer, who had the best team in the NCAA tournament, bittersweet they didn't get it done and win it. But Jon Scheyer is the head coach at Duke basketball. Okay. But he's not the primary decision maker he's one of the, but because Duke and many other teams, whether following this model or not, has a general manager. These teams have GMs. Wouldn't be surprised. Director of basketball operations at Duke. This is their front office to handle all of these things. Okay? It's time, Dabo. It's time, Clemson. Get on board. You seem to have a little bit of, that old school when the coach was the general manager. That day is done. Old school Bill Parcells. Well, if I'm going to cook the meal, I want to pick the groceries. If I'm going to cook the meal, I want to pick it's too much work. There's too much that goes into it now. Never mind NIL, the analytics, hyper specialization. Okay? So again, to Chris's point, Clemson is reloaded. I'm glad to see it. But it's a perennial process, Dabo. You're reloaded this year. You need to, I'm not going to tell them. The fact of the matter is, as soon as this year is over, and by the way, Cam, shout out to 4th and 1. Cam's platform, which his interviews, a lot of, we don't play hate, we congratulate around here. I was encouraged by Cam leaning into, right? I'm not the whole shut up and dribble, shut up and, that whole mentality that's still out there. Fine, you can have that. You want to look at people as one-dimensional, which, by the way, is never helpful, particularly in youth sports. That perspective is harmful. It's not just it's not helpful. It's harmful when we look at these young people as one-dimensional. Shout out to At All Costs. Go ahead and check it out. I need to check out the documentary that Chris recommended about the Drew League. It's harmful. We got to get away from it. I was talking to my buddy, my cousin actually, and his son's coming up and he's doing well. And, I said, listen, he's not a basketball player that happens to be your son. He's your son who happens to be a basketball player. Okay? That's how it needs to be framed. I borrowed that framing from Coach K. I don't look at myself as a basketball coach. This is Coach K. Maybe you've seen the commercial. I look at myself as a leader who happens to coach basketball. That's Coach K connecting himself back to those West Point roots. He talks about how he had a double dose of greatness, which he did. Playing at West Point, and this tangent is going to continue, but we're going to get back. This is a great story, which I will let you find and discover, unless you guys have questions. If you want me to tell a story, I'll tell it. But you may want to check the book out, The Rise and Reign of Coach K by Ian O'Connor, which is good. Have it on Audible. But also, Coach K talks about this, and he has he's on different platforms. He speaks to this a good amount about how he got to West Point in the first place. I'll let you guys figure, find, or I can tell it, whatever you want to do. But Coach K talks about he had a double dose of greatness. He had a double dose of greatness, right? Playing for Bobby Knight, who found him in the Chi. Yeah, Coach K is a Chicago guy. That toughness. Recruits Chicago very well. That's his hometown. And then he's going to West Point in terms of leadership, right? The future leaders of the most powerful military in the history of mankind. A double dose of greatness. I don't look at myself as a basketball coach. I don't look at myself as a basketball coach. I look at myself as a leader who happens to coach basketball. Okay? These are, and they're getting older and older. Never mind that. The 24, 25, 26, which I don't necessarily agree with, but get your money. It is what it is. It's more, college sports has become the equivalent of like the European professional leagues, which are a feeder system for the NBA. Talk about Luka being 16, dominating grown men. Like this kid, we see it. Wemby, out there, 16, 17, dominating. Well, that's what college sports is more and more. These phenom freshmen, but they're playing against 24 and 25-year-olds, and they're dominant. So it's like NFL says we can use that. Back to Dabo and Clemson. And the reality that, yeah, Dabo, you're the coach, and you can guide them so on, but it's not what it was. It's not these 3 and 4 year windows when you can have a Bryant and recruit a Trevor Lawrence and then just go with Trevor Lawrence, and you still have Bryant, and you expect Bryant, I believe his name was Kelly Bryant, to stay on the roster. Let me just make sure I get that right, because I remember that situation, right? And you as a coach have all the leverage. Nick Saban, did this all the time. Yep, Kelly Bryant was the man doing his thing. They brought in Trevor Lawrence to be the heir apparent, and Trevor Lawrence beat him out for the job. Back then, it was just overwhelming. Not only did that player who was promised A, B, C, and X, Y, Z, as soon as I see better, gone. What happened to all those promises? You sat in my house. You spoke to my parents. You said it's going to be this way, that way, the third way. Young long-haired Trevor Lawrence came to town. Oh, that was out the window. Well, son, you got to just trust the process, and, it's going to all work out in the end. All these euphemisms. You had this vision, and, I bought into it. Yeah, but, also Trevor could wait. But no. We're going to go with him right now. And they got to the Natty, won the championship, whatever, But the player, if I transfer, I got to sit a year. Never mind, I'm not getting all this NIL money. Now the player is the odd man out, just like that. Well, guess what? It's the other way around. Talk about it. The Wire, Marlo Stanfield, talking to the security officer. You want it one way. You want it one way. But it's the other way. I'm not the only one. Forbes right there saying that's what Dabo late to the party on. Coaches had all that leverage, all that say-so, all that prestige, and now they are eye level. Eye level. And what's different, and first of all, that's why these colleges need a general manager to do all this stuff, all these negotiations. Had Alabama had a general manager, never mind if Nick Saban would have shared power with a general manager, that's a whole other conversation. But if they had had a general manager, maybe Nick Saban wouldn't have burned out. If Villanova had had a general manager, maybe Jay Wright wouldn't have burned out. Because the coach is doing both of those things. But you need a general manager. And it has to be clearly, explicitly understood that it's a 1 year, meaning a 4 or 5 or 6 month window. If they get there early, right? A lot of times these freshmen get there in the spring after, they're in high school, but they show right up. They're there in the spring through the summer. They play their season, and then it's done. And in real time, it's done midway through the season for those players that you promised whatever, and they're not playing. So you brought in, because you need, it's football, it's attrition. So you brought in two tight ends. You paid both of them whatever in NIL. I'm going with this guy. The second guy, he's gone. Or you're going to have to make a very convincing offer for that person to stay. And that's the bottom line of it. Now we can bring in the extra marinara that Cam Newton brought to the equation, talking about, and this goes to, first of all, the Wild West. Second of all, the vulnerability of 17, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds. Cam was looking at this NIL revolution, which is a free-for-all for these young attorneys and quote-unquote agents, whatever makes. Who's an agent? I'm an agent. I like football. I can come up with some numbers. I can do some research. I'm an agent. Me. I should be an agent. I like sports. I can say this player is valued at whatever, just like anybody else can say. I can develop a relationship with the player and say, listen, I'm going to get you a deal. I'm going to get you a deal. I'm going to secure a bag for you. But I cite my sources. This is Cam's take. Saying, okay, so now, first of all, it's Joe Schmo. You could be an agent out there in television land. You like sports. You think that you want to see this player do well. You're an agent. You stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, qualified. You go to this player, he's at Clemson. Say, hey, okay, you're doing well. How's it going here? It's going all right? All right. Well, I heard, whether you heard it or not. Now, this is the unscrupulous part of it, not the people that are in there trying to do right for this player, but I heard that so-and-so over here got $3 million, same position as you. If you want, I can go speak to him and see what they, okay, yeah, go ahead and do that. Okay, so next thing you go to that next, all right, I heard you're giving so-and-so $3 million. You want to, my player over here, he's up and coming. You saw what he did in the game tape. He's up and coming. You give me 3.2. If we can get 3.2, that's a deal. I can brag. We can make it happen. Coach says I'll give you 1.5. Now you go back to the other. Well, I said 3. They come back with 1.5. That's still $500,000 more than what you're getting right now. Maybe we take it and go. NFL agent gets 3% of the deal. You're hearing standard operating procedure 50%. for these agents on these NIL deals. 50%. So if I can secure that $8 million for Ewers to go wherever instead of going to the NFL, I'm taking on $4 million, no questions asked. And what makes me his agent? We went to high school together. I'm the agent now. It's my boy from high school. I took a couple accounting classes. I like math. I saw Moneyball. I'm the agent. Quinn, trust you. You know, hey, that's hey, you gonna get. They're gonna give 8. You know what I mean? So I take 4 mils. You know what I mean? That's the numbers. 50%. Okay. Right. Not even knowing that you gave away 47%. He should get 3%, not a dime more. Okay. Again, Cam's take, 4th and 1, does a good job, has a good setup, built a whole new studio. He's investing in his passion project, putting out good material. Okay. Don't play a hate, congratulate, cite the sources. And now Dabo's here still talking about not poaching players. No, this is the landscape. I hope Clemson has a good season. I don't think Clemson needs to go to the SEC. This whole 2 mega conferences thing is as equal a problem. Never mind Requiem for the Big East. Check it out, 30 for 30 gold. About all this realignment. Check out Requiem for the Big East. It's on point. It just makes no sense. I don't think it's good for the lower teams, i.e. BC, getting the break speed off of them in the ACC. You lose rivalries, you know, BC, Notre Dame, like these that's and it favored, Ohio State is not moving. Michigan is not moving. Alabama's not moving. Georgia's not moving. They've been in the SEC. They have the tradition. They have the heritage, which helps them across the board. These other teams fearful, oh, I got to get on this wagon. And why don't you be a Boise State? Be a Washington. Be a really strong program in a second tier Power 5 conference, meaning every other conference but the Big Ten and SEC. Build it up right. Go out there and start beating some of those teams. Keep your local traditions, your local rivalries. You're not, and this is the point that you hear coaches bring up, Gino Auriemma amongst others. What are we doing? We're in Boise State, but now we're in the ACC. So we're going to Miami on a Tuesday for a game. Makes no sense beyond the dollars. You're UCLA. You're in the Big Ten. You got to go to Penn State. You got to go to Indiana. Look, Charlie Baker's got a big job. Back to the NCAA. You got the commander-in-chief weighing in on these things. Transfer portal, first of all. Conference alignment, second of all. I like what I've seen vis-a-vis the salary caps. Right. Thank you. You're going to Rutgers on a Tuesday and vice versa for a conference game, for a division game. Ridiculous. And it's just it's almost like a Hunger Games type of a situation where we need one good team just to say no, I'm not leaving. We need a good team to say, right? Because Texas and Oklahoma leave the Big 12, and now every other, now I don't want to be the only big team, so I guess I have to leave too. We need somebody to say, no, I'm staying. I'm staying. That's what the Big East did, right? They said, we're going to be a basketball conference. We're going to bring in these Catholic schools, these, mid-major powers, and we're going to be straight basketball. And they reestablished themselves into a league that consistently puts out tournament and national championship grade teams. All right. Somebody hold the line, take the hit, get these conferences back with some semblance of geographic and historic geographic and historic the word I'm looking for, form, for lack of a better term. We'll have to just go with form. Couldn't come up with anything better. Maybe that hurts my argument. It probably does. Geographic and historic semblance. That's better. All right, let's move over to the NBA. We can talk about college. I'll stay on that narrative. Couple people, okay. Sunday night. Weather continues to be right here on the Cape and Islands. Hope things are going well. Where you guys are, SandCity is moving and grooving and getting it done. All right, so Billy Donovan re-upping with the Bulls. In his sixth season there, has not been the tenure that they or I would have liked. Billy Donovan coming over from Oklahoma City, where he did make noise, most definitely. But the Bulls, they've just been a lottery play-in team. Consistently, emphatically. Just get my situations. Let's get organized here. Okay, we got it. 1, 2, 3. Scroll down. All right, so why is Billy Donovan re-signing with the Chicago Bulls important? First reason, he's a solid coach. He knows his business. He can develop talent. He can get through the stars. He can scheme wins. That has not evidenced itself for me. Never mind that he had folks that, i.e. Zach LaVine, were not loyal to the soil in terms of the process and where the team was at. They needed Lonzo Ball to make that roster work. Lonzo, LaVine, DeRozan, right? Your two wings. Vucevic inside. You draft Pat Williams, a 3-and-D type of a player. You had a bench behind them. Kobe White. Kobe White's more of a scoring guard, in my view. But Bill, he's a solid coach. Coming from the Patino tree. He's going to have order. He's going to get through to the players. Doesn't have to necessarily yell and scream, but he can do that when needed. Just a quiet firmness and then a knowledge and a feel for the game. Bulls have young pieces. They got Giddey. They got Matas Boulias, who's solid, coming up through the ranks. All of those good things that I've said, I would have liked to have seen them get an 8th seed, get a 7th seed, be in the playoffs, losing the first round, but at least make it there. And next year, that needs to happen. That's not, play-in, which they've been in the play-in every single year, minus a couple. Can they get a top 6 seed in the East? I don't see why not, especially with the injuries. That's not a deal breaker for me. It is for them to make the playoffs next season. Okay, because some of the contrarians, some of the naysayers are not there. They are young, but they're bought in. Even though Billy Donovan can deal with some personalities, you got guys that are bought in. So I'm expecting Matas Boulias to see him take an Amen Thompson leap. Yes, I am. Talk about the Thompson brothers and how, they're up next. Well, they play for M.A. Udoka and J.B. Bickerstaff, right? They had the talent. Now they're coming up under leadership. Now they're starting to shine. So the Bulls have these young guys. They have the leadership. They need to start to shine. All right? Is it out of the realm of possibility that they can make it in the top 6? I have Orlando. I can't say definitively in the top 6. Orlando, Boston's going to be there, even though I'm angry with them. Cleveland will be there. So that's 3 for sure. Orlando, Cleveland, and Boston. New York's going to be there, even though I'm angry with them. That's 4. Let's go ahead and take a look. I know we got these fringe teams. The Atlanta Hawks are on the fringes. Pacers are on the fringe with the injuries. Detroit needs to make a move. If I'm Detroit, I move for Jalen Green to partner him up with Cade. But as constituted, a healthy Jaden Ivey, right? Miami, can't trust him right now. Atlanta, can't you? So Detroit would be the 5th team. Detroit, Orlando, Boston, Cleveland, and New York. That's my top 5. We got the Pacers fighting for that 6th spot. We got the Hawks fighting for that 6th spot. The Heat and the Bulls. They should be in the mix. Toronto, I don't agree with them getting rid of Masai Ujiri, even though their roster is just a bunch of 6'8" versatile guys with no true point guard. Brooklyn, they're just building it up. Michael Porter Jr. getting his shot. Philadelphia, I don't trust them to stay healthy. And then Charlotte and Washington. Washington being one of the youngest, if not the youngest team in the league. I like that. Charlotte with Charles Lee, coaching them up. I think Charlotte needs to get rid of LaMelo. It is what it is. But so, there's 4 teams. Quinn Snyder knows his business. Billy, you know your business as well. Obviously, Spoelstra is an elite coach. I'd like to see the Bulls make a run at that 6th seed and not be just because it's the East and you have teams that are atrocious. It's like the play-in is a sympathetic right. Playing in the East. The Bulls made the play-in. They're 9 games ahead of the Raptors. Come on. And 4 games under 500 because you have teams that are tanking. All right. Bulls made the right decision because he's a good coach. and he adds this ability, so on and forth. This Bulls decision, and what aggravates me in this whole thing, is that there's reported that the Knicks reached out about Billy Donovan. All right. Billy Donovan would have been a good coach. He would have been a Tibbs clone. Right? This is my issue with the Knicks. You got rid of a coach, not just my coach, but an elite coach, a winning coach, and brought in a comp for that same person. And Mike Brown, all due respect, I don't know if he's a better coach than Tibbs. They're about the same. But for me, I'm taking Tibbs. And I'm certainly taking Tibbs for that roster. Mike Brown would have been the better coach for the Sacramento Kings roster. A running gun team. The Knicks are a half-court team. Right? So Billy Donovan can play both. He can play running gun. He can play more of a half-court. With Levine and DeRozan, they're more of a half-court group. They ran, selectively, on stops and whatnot. But from his Florida days with Horford, Corey Brewer, Joakim Noah, they were locking people up and getting out in transition. But, you're going to get the headlines, New York. You're going to get rid of Tibbs. You're going to show them and then just go and try to poach capable quarterbacks from other teams. That's just ridiculous. That's in the rear view. Chris noted, Knicks, people are high on the Knicks. They're certainly more talented. They beefed up their bench. I think it's going to be a challenge, as always, with for them to change their style of play. I do not feel this roster is best playing pace and space, going 10 deep. Knicks want to go ahead and try that. I do not believe that's their best way to play. Slower pace, more usage for your starters. But then, if Tibbs were still the coach, slower pace, high usage, added weapons. Meaning, you can run offense through Clarkson. They needed to run more offense through Bridges. You have Shamet. You have Campaign. You have Kolek. But to say now the Knicks are going to spread it out, get up and down the court and hoop, and then just rotate guys in and out, I don't see it. I think it's the continuity that people disregarded. You can stop sharing Billy Donovan now because we're talking Knicks. With La Cosa Nova and them playing together all those minutes, knowing where each other was on the court at all times. That's obviously going to have to be built up if you go to a deeper rotation, and players will get that, and players will become more familiar with other players, fine. But your best players having that's what matters at the end of the day. Not whether Mikal Bridges can play with a Precious Achua or whether he can play with a Deuce, but whether he can play with the other 4 best players on the team is what matters. And that was the Knicks system last year. That's why they were successful. 2 games away from the finals. And so how Mike Brown navigates this, he knows, is he going to run? Is he going to play in the half court and really make make some hard choices with the rotation? Because they do have now 10 guys looking for minutes. Hey, I wish them the best, but I have my reservations. Okay, let's see. I'm going to go to the NFL. See, Jokic's horse won. Mr. Low-Key Jokic. His horse won. And I want to take a look at the Denver Broncos, folks. Move my face back from the screen. Are the Denver Broncos making the playoffs? Are the Denver Broncos making noise? Let's take a look. Hope everybody out there, television land, is doing well. Let's go ahead. Alrighty. Screen is not. What are you doing to me here? That's not going to work. That was good art. That's not going to work either. That's not going to work either. Taking too much time to get our art up. That should be good. And this is what I'm talking about. Thank you. At long last, we're going to look at the Broncos, folks. Dark horse team. Dark horse teams. Will the Broncos make the playoffs? Will the Broncos make noise? Let's get into it. I want to pull up their over-under. And then we'll it's dead air. There needs to be an odd man out in the AFC West. I think the Denver Broncos. Is it going to be Denver or is it going to be the Chargers? I got to say Denver. I lean more Harbaugh than I do Sean Payton. All right. 9.5 wins is the over-under for the Broncos. 9.5 wins. Let's take a look and see if they can eclipse that. See if they can make the second season. What are we looking at schedule-wise? All right, start the season off with Tennessee and Indy. Okay? So those are two primers. That's good grace right there. Excuse me, good luck. Another way to put it. Tennessee, rookie quarterback, rebuilding. Indy, question mark at quarterback, searching for their identity. Right? So that's two must-win games. And maybe you put a little emphasis on that and blow one or both of those teams out. But the Broncos cannot drop either of those games, and they should win handily. Okay. All right, then we go Chargers, Bengals, Eagles. All right, so now we have 2 weeks, get ourselves in order, develop some momentum. That Chargers game, it's tough because these are the head-to-head games that are going to decide who makes the playoffs and who doesn't. So you got to get it. I'm leaning Chargers and Harbaugh. May the best man win. We'll say that game, they're even money to win. Bengals. I feel like the Broncos should beat the Bengals because they are one-dimensional. Obviously, the best player on the field is going to be Joe Burrow. But he's got to deal with the Surtain. He's got to deal with the Broncos defense that's been growing and building. Okay? Mr. Nix, new face. But the Bengals defense is there for the taking. They're obviously pressure, having to go toe-to-toe with Joe Burrow but Joe Burrow, you got to have confidence that your defense can slow him down at times. Whereas defensively, the Bengals from the Broncos, never mind keeping Joe Burrow off the field, but we're just going to run over you. Okay? Bo doesn't have to go crazy. We're going to run over you and play off the play action. We're going to run over you and take shots off of the play action, is better said. But that's a game against another team scratching and clawing for the playoffs where I have the Broncos as favorites. Eagles, you're not favored. But by this time, maybe you can get in there and steal a game from the defending Super Bowl champions who are loaded. But they start 2-0. Possibility to go 3-0 against the Chargers, even money game. Possibility to go 4-0 against Cincy. Monday Night Football. All right, and then we're talking the Eagles on the road, 1 o'clock window. So this, the Bengals could be 3-2, or they could be 2-3. If you lose 3 straight, divisional rival, MVP candidate team, and defending champion, I have them at 3-2. Lose to the Eagles, lose to the Chargers, beat the Bengals. Say 3-2. Jets and Giants, 2 cupcakes. Dallas, a team that doesn't know who they are. So if they're 3-2, I favor Denver over Dallas. I think Dallas is more talented, but I don't, who knows if they're not more together. Sean Payton should scheme that win. So now you go from 3-2. They beat the 2 New York teams. They beat Dallas. Now 6-2. Houston, again, at Houston. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt. I think it's even money, but I'll favor Houston. So 6-3. Vegas, 7-3. Kansas City at home, 7-4. At Washington, 7-5. At Vegas, 8-5. Green Bay at home. They should get that one. There's your 9th win. Green Bay's coming to your house. I know Green Bay, they're making strides. They're playing a better, a conference a division, that has become sneakily one of the most competitive in the league. But it's in Denver. I'm giving the advantage to Denver for 9-5. Jacksonville at home, 10-5. And then at KC, 10-6. Chargers at home. That's the 11-6 and the chance to split. So they're saying 9.5 for Denver. I have to go over that 9.5. Their schedule is, there's opportunities in their schedule, is what I'll say. You have a number, them playing the Giants and the Jets. Come on. 2 teams that have no idea who they are. The Raiders, 2 times. Rebuilding team. That's 4 games against teams lacking identity. Cowboys, you can make that 5. Tennessee, Indy, 7. I'd throw Cincy in there because they don't, never mind the salary cap, they don't have a defense, 8. So that's 8 teams, to me, that are finding themselves. Meanwhile, the Broncos, Sean Payton, you've been there. Like, let's get the show on the road. So the Broncos are a curious team, in my mind. Whereas, they have a coach many consider to be elite, even Hall of Fame grade. Only to 1 Super Bowl. One, it was a call that was missed for sure. But coming in, taking the Walton money, talking the talk, running Russell Wilson out of town, want to do it your way. All right, you got Bo Nix now, coaching up, quarterback of the future. And a favorable schedule. I'll say it again. I have the Broncos winning 10 or 11 games and being right there for the playoffs. You can't guarantee what it's going to take to make the playoffs in the AFC. But the Broncos have a path. Let's power through that one more time, then we'll slide over to the Chargers. Power through that list one more time. Happy Sunday night, folks. Hope everybody out there in television land is doing well. Just taking a look across the socials, see where we're at, what's going on. Well, let's power through this. Let's power through this list one more time. Vis-a-vis the Broncos, slated at 9.5 wins. Come in here, correct me if I'm wrong. What you think? Tennessee 1-0, Indy 2-0, at Los Angeles 2-1, Cincy at home 3-1, at Philly 3-2, at the Jets 4-2, at the Giants 5-2. Excuse me, Jets, Giants. Those are 2 home games. So 4-5-2. Dallas at home 6-2. On the road at Houston. That's a game, frankly, they should be able to steal with the momentum. I gave it to Houston. CJ Stroud and Nico Collins. But with those 2 cupcakes, Jets and Giants, then Dallas at home, I'm going to say 7-2. I'm going to give it's a 50-50, but I'm going to give it to Denver, just with the momentum. Then Vegas at home, 8-2. Kansas City at home, I think the buck stops there, 8-3. On the road at Washington, 8-4. On the road at Vegas, 9-4. Green Bay at home, 10-4. Jacksonville at home, 11-4. On the road at Kansas City, 11-5. Chargers at home, 12-5. I got the Broncos at 10 on the lower end, 12 at the higher end. I just see options and I see opportunities on their schedule. I see them being able to build up momentum going into challenging games. 10 on the low end, 12 on the high end. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at their rival for a playoff berth. I get the hardball is confused. And we got Jim. That's good out. That's good art. Shout out to the LA Times. That is good art. All right, let's talk Chargers. Hope everybody is doing well out there in television land. Hope you had a good weekend. Gearing up to go. It's not the screen that I wanted to share. Stop sharing that, even though I rock with the Athletic. There we go. All right, Coach Harbaugh. Bringing the energy. He's got the blue khakis on. Had to switch it up from the tan. Football lifer, coach's son. Okay, let's see. Let me get myself in order here. Okay. Let me get myself organized here. Come down a bit. Come up a bit in the shot. Go down in the shot. Come back up in the shot. Production. All right, let's take a look at the Chargers, who I have edging out the Broncos to make the playoffs, but we shall see. And again, that's why they play the games. Shout out to J Mac. Shout out to Straight Fire, Rob G. It's a go-to for football takes. As we get into football, you got to check out Unc and Ocho. They know their football. Okay, Chargers. No love lost. Starting off with Kansas City at home. At home, can they steal it? Harbaugh, Reed, opening night. On a Friday. Game's on YouTube. I'm going to say advantage KC, 0-1. On the road to Vegas, 1-1. On the road at Denver, On the road at Denver, 1-2. At New York, 2-2. Washington at home, I'm going to give that to them, 3-2. Even though that's a tough one. At Miami, also battling for a playoff spot, 3-3. I'm seeing some trouble here. Indy, 4-3. Minnesota at home. Brian Flores defense, 4-4. At Tennessee, 5-4. Steelers at home, tough one. I'll give it to them, 6-4. At Jacksonville, 7-4. Raiders at home, 8-4. At Philly at home, 8-5. At Kansas City, 8-6. At Dallas, on the road, going to give them the edge, 9-6. Houston at home, toss up, 10-6. At Denver, I have them splitting 11-6. So folks, Coach Harbaugh is bringing the energy. Looking at it, their schedule's tougher than Denver's. Please. They got a tougher schedule, folks. What are they projected at wins and losses wise? They're also 9.5, according to Yahoo Sports. So it's the same as Denver, but they got a tougher road. Period, end story. Okay, I'm not seeing, both the Broncos and the Chargers are going to play Tennessee and Indiana, two teams that don't know who the heck they are. But whereas, and the Chargers are going to play the Giants. All right, gotcha. But they're not playing the Jets. Instead of playing the Jets, they're playing the Dolphins. All right? Two different scenarios. Mike McDaniels, possibly, allegedly on the hot seat, but far more weapons, playoff contending, and the Jets are just trying to make it through the season and possibly, win the March for Arch. So they have to play Pittsburgh. That's a much tougher game. They have to play Pittsburgh and Minnesota. They have to play Pittsburgh and Minnesota, whereas the Denver. I'd rather play Cincinnati than Pittsburgh. I'd rather play a team that's dominant on one side of the ball and a pushover on the other side of the ball. So let's take a look at that. Pittsburgh and Minnesota are the Bengals and Green Bay. It's comparable. NFC North is ferocious. So Green Bay and Minnesota are both going to be tough outs. But I like that Cincinnati matchup versus the Pittsburgh matchup. Pittsburgh, it's going to be a knockdown, drag out. You might win, you might not, but both teams are just going to, be beaten down in that game. Both teams want to play physical. They want to run the ball. Whereas Cincy, that's going to be a finesse game. They're going to spread you out. Joe Burrow's going to do what he's going to do, but you can slow the game down. You can run on that defense, score on that defense. As I said, I'm favoring the Harbaugh energy over the Payton energy to make the playoffs, but one team plays the Jets and the Bengals. The other team plays the Dolphins and the Steelers. That's tough. Okay? Those are two games that are more challenging. And folks, you're welcome to correct me if you think that I'm wrong. Vis-a-vis the Chargers than the Bengals. Do I come off my take? I got to take a step back, and I cannot definitively say that I like the Chargers to beat out the Broncos, in the 3-team playoff race in the AFC West. All right. Let's take a quick aside here. Okay. Just taking a look at quickly the Heisman odds. Arch not a favorite. Arch not a favorite to win the Heisman. All right. I see what you're saying. I'll take that at face value. AFC West. This is tough. Can the Chargers, with a tougher strength of schedule, get that one game that they're going to need, or that one matchup versus the Broncos to win that coveted wildcard playoff spot? Started off with yes. I got to, it is what it is. There's no comparing. A loss to Miami is not a bad loss for the Chargers. Miami is a very talented team battling for playoff position. A loss to the Steelers is not a bad loss for the Chargers. Steelers are a physical team with a Hall of Fame quarterback trying to win. A loss to the Jets is egregious and shameful for the Broncos. And the Bengals, for however talented Joe Burrow is, Denver secondary is stout, and Cincy doesn't have a defense. I'm not choosing sides on this because Harbaugh is a dude. Payton, all right, I gotta give him respect. I favor the cut of Harbaugh's jib, as they say, over Payton. But they have an uphill battle. Whereas you might look at them having to beat the Broncos in both of those matchups to get that head-to-head and that extra win. No shame in splitting with the Broncos, but the Chargers might have to win both. And then if they lose both to the Broncos with their schedule, I don't know. I don't see them making the playoffs. If they lose both to the Broncos, if they lose both to the Chiefs, neither of which is, it's almost like they have to split. Tough divisional game, so on and forth. Match up with the Eagles. Strength versus strength. So I got the Chiefs making the playoffs in the AFC West, and to be determined. To be determined. All right. Let's take a stroll through and see if we have any further topics before we go to Slice of Life. And we most certainly do. We most certainly do. We're going to talk legacy, folks. We're going to talk legacy before we get up and out of here. We're going to move from the NFL to Major League Baseball. And a subject that is near and dear to my heart, the Hall of Fame. Let's go ahead and sharing is caring. Ichiro, Sabathia, Wagner, Parker, and Allen inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. 30,000 people showed up in Cooperstown. All right, so I'm looking at this. I see Ichiro, boom. CC, boom. The Yankees. Not as familiar with Wagner. Not as familiar with the other three, Wagner, Parker, and Allen. But what I want to hammer home, along with looking at the careers and the stats, okay. Baseball's Hall of Fame is for real. It's for real. Okay, just off the top, they induct who crosses the bar. There's no minimum people to be inducted. So it's 5 this year that reach that level. Okay, if it's only 1 or 2, then we're only letting in 1 or 2. It's not about narratives. It's not about lifetime achievement. It's not about feel good. It's about the Hall of Fame. What are your numbers and how do they stack up against those currently enshrined? And we're keeping to that. We'll deal with whatever pushback arises in relation to that. But I feel like baseball is top of the list. NFL, right? Second. NBA, distant third. That if you make the Hall of Fame with confidence, I can assert that you had a great career. Now, there's always going to be those fringe guys, and right, everyone's not going to be a Babe Ruth, a Bob Gibson, a Willie Mays. Right? And baseball, certainly, I think the controversy surrounding, I can't say certainly, then I say I think. The controversy surrounding the Hall of Fame is with the all-time greats, i.e. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Pete Rose, whose names have been marred and therefore are not. Those are serious conversations. Pete Rose, exhumously, being allowed to be inducted. That's a tough one. It is Pete Rose deserving to be in the Hall of Fame? No question about it. It's not like any sports person can make that statement. But to lift the lifetime ban after he had passed away, bittersweet only begins to describe it. Is the Baseball Hall of Fame better with Pete Rose in it? Yes. But it's also true that it would have been better for Pete Rose to have been able to experience that moment if you were going to let him in at all. To do it posthumously, I'm not saying there's anything underhanded in it, in that how it's been adjudicated. And it hammers home what I am attempting to articulate, namely that baseball is serious about its history, its records, its traditions. Meaning, yes, Pete Rose is deserving. He may one day be inducted, but when he crossed that line in the sand that was created by the Chicago Black Sox and the throwing of the World Series in the early 20th century, when he crossed that line that baseball wrote in the sand and meant, he was going to suffer. There was going to be a severe penalty. And the lifetime ban, which it was, represented that. Baseball said, no, there's not going to be a kumbaya. We said it. We meant it. There's a clear historical precedent. Check out Ken Burns' baseball documentary to understand it better. And even you, Pete Rose, Mr. Baseball, are liable. Baseball said no man is above the law and meant it. Sign me up on the respect train. All right? And I think Obviously, I think it because I'm doing a podcast now saying these things. Other leagues need to follow suit. The horse is so far out of the barn with the NBA and the narrative-driven selections into the Hall of Fame. What we have is, never mind the fact that the horse is so far out of the barn. The question is, can the NBA reinstitute high standards for its Hall of Fame? All the while being the textbook example of what a league looks like dropping their standards to the point where a Vlade Divac is in a Hall of Fame. Right? That's where baseball's example is so important in sports. By keeping that high standard, you don't have 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 15 questionable inductees. That's the thing with the Hall of Fame. Soon as you lower the bar, you create a new standard. And that, well, it's like Vlade Divac. What is he, a one-time All-Star? See when Vlade got in. Vlade Divac was selected in 2019 by the international community. And this is a point that's consistently brought up. It's not the NBA Hall of Fame, it's the Basketball Hall of Fame. Then the NBA needs its own Hall of Fame. Well, it's the Basketball Hall of Fame. Still. And Vlade Divac's a Hall of Famer because of his international contribution. Come on. I've seen Once Brothers. You need to see it if you haven't. He was a good player on a good team, on a loaded team. Vlade Divac, Drazen Petrovic, Tony Kukoc, Dino Raja, others. As a part of the first wave of European players. But he wasn't the brightest star on that team. It was Petrovic. The NBA needs its own Hall of Fame, or the Basketball Hall of Fame will continue to be a participation trophy, narrative-driven institution. Participation trophy is harsh. A lifetime achievement institution. Okay? And that's where the lines get blurred. Lou Merloni, WEEI, OMF, which they shouldn't have taken off of the air. 3-second rule. If it takes you more than 3 seconds to think about whether somebody's a Hall of Famer, they're not a Hall of Famer. Talk about this in football. Is Rob Gronkowski a Hall of Famer? Yes. Is Julian Edelman a Hall of Famer? Well, he did have those catches. He won those Super Bowls. No, he's not. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's the Hall of Fame. Is Larry Bird a Hall of Famer? Yes. Is Dennis Johnson a Hall of Famer? Right? No, he's not. No. And the situation where, well, this person on the team got in, so I want my teammate. That's not what the Hall of Fame is. It's not a Hall of Friends. It's a Hall of Fame. Well, Michael Irvin got in, so we want, the tight end on that team was good too. And no, Michael gets in, Emmett gets in, Aikman gets in, Charles Haley gets in. The rest, no. It's not a Hall of Good. It's not a Hall of Friends. It's not a Lifetime Achievement Award. It's not about a participation. It's the Hall of Fame. Okay, relative to baseball, as I've said, the Mariano Rivera's, the Derek Jeters, the Randy Johnsons, okay, Reggie Jackson. There's just no two ways about it. I bring Sandy Koufax. Yes. Bob Feller. Yes. I'll make sure Bob Feller's in the Hall of Fame. '62. Okay. So respect, Cooperstown, ceremony, and tip my hat to a league that says no. There's no shame in not making the Hall of Fame, is what I want to acknowledge. And along with that, it's not a Lifetime Achievement Award. So-and-so was a good person. They did a lot of great things off the field. They were a great teammate. They're a good locker room guy, which is the same thing as being a good teammate. All those intangibles. Wonderful. So with all of that, you have your reward. Those things don't add up to the Hall of Fame. They add up to a noble, proud career. End of discussion. And whether social media has a lot to do with this, I'm not going to put this all on social media. It's human nature, right? I'm at the top of the line, first in line. You want to give people their flowers and to acknowledge and look at the history. I serve on the Hall of Fame board, where I live, in the school I graduated from. Telling the story with professional sports, their records are kept, their accolades, so on and forth. But it's not a Lifetime Achievement Award, particularly as individuals get down the road. Okay? That's when you have to hold the line. You see, the old timers, they get upset. They should get upset. It means a lot. But because it means a lot, we got to hold the line. Because if you have, one sentimental candidate here, well, they were getting up in the years and we wanted to make sure before. Okay, so now that's a new standard. We can tell you no. This is borrowing Rob Parker's take. If it takes you 10 times to get in the Hall of Fame, are you a Hall of Famer? Rob Parker says no. He's right. I like how baseball does it, to go to the Veterans Committee for further review, and they can take a look at it. And that's a lot where you get these old timers that will get in, in the 15th attempt. It lowers the standard. We don't feel as aggrieved at times because a lot of, those individuals are from a different era, and we can't delineate as much, but it lowers the standard, and it's not right for other great players. That's the thing. The intangible enshrinees, those whose statistics were not overwhelming, but they're, all around good people, those intangible enshrinees take away from the flat out dominant, deserving players. So, baseball, your Hall of Fame induction. I know CC, I know Ichiro, long-standing. Right? I can feel confident. Let's take a look. Mr. Ichiro, 10-time All-Star, MVP in 01, Rookie of the Year in 01, 10-time Golden Glove, 3-time Silver Slugger, 2-time batting champion, AL stolen base leader, single season record for hits. Prior to this, if we want to talk, so that's just MLB. The 7-time All-Star in Japan, 7-time Golden Glove Award winner, so on and forth. Which you can add up, but the MLB, so essentially we didn't get to see prime Ichiro. It came over late and balled while he was here. First ballot Hall of Famer, 99.7%. With those dominant numbers, and we didn't get to see him in his prime. Or the fullness of his prime. 99.7. Let's take a look at CC. All right. CC. 6-time All-Star. World Series champion, won a Cy Young. ALCS MVP. 2-time he led the MLB in wins. 250 wins for his career. 3,000 strikeouts. 3.74 earned run average. Gets in with 87% of the ballot. Gotta say, a little bit less. Only 6 All-Stars. Okay, I need to see double digits. I'd like to see double digits. I'm only seeing 6. 300 wins, 3,000 strike, 250, 250 wins, and 300 strike at 3,000 strikeouts. Okay, you're speaking my language. Two-time wins leader, you're speaking my language, but not as impressive of a resume as Ichiro. Let's take a look at Billy Wagner. You see what I'm saying here, folks? Meaning, CC could have waited. He got 87%. I think the threshold is 80, 85. I would have had CC wait. I like the 250 wins. I like the 3,000 strikeouts. Two-time you led the league in wins, but only 6 All-Stars. You got to wait. I need double digits. Take a look at Wagner. Billy Wagner, 7-time All-Star. Relief Man of the Year in 99. 422 career saves. 1,196 strikeouts. 83% of the ballot. 10th ballot. See what I'm saying there, folks? I think we talked about this. Gets in on the 10th ballot. 6, 7-time All-Star. He had to wait. We got 3. We got to go Dave Parker, and we'll do the last 2. But I have Ichiro as a first ballot. CC, I would have had him waiting. Dave Parker, again, gets 88% of the vote. He's voted in by the Classic Baseball Era Committee, which we talked about. He's a 7-time All-Star. He's MVP in 78. 3 Golden Gloves, 3 Silver Sluggers, 2-time batting champion. Led the National League in RBIs. Won 1 MVP. He had to wait. Is he a Hall of Famer? Fringe. 1 MVP. That's good, obviously. But I need to see 10 All-Stars. You need to be an All-Star for 10 years. I need longevity in baseball. Careers are longer. He did have an MVP. He did lead the league in RBIs. 7-time All-Star. 10 All-Stars, to me, is a minimum. Dave Parker, had to wait his turn. He gets into Cooperstown. I'm of the same mindset as Rob Parker. If it took you that long, Lifetime Achievement Award you're in is good. Hall of Famer, no. No. I got Ichiro as a Hall of Famer, and I have 2, possibly 3 Lifetime Achievement Awards. CC, and again, another classic baseball era selection here with 81.3. This is Dick Allen, 7-time All-Star, Rookie of the Year, 1 MVP, 2-time home run leader, right? I think we lost the shot. My apologies, folks. No, we got it back. Okay, so the proof is in the pudding, folks. Of this list, Ichiro is a Hall of Famer. 1, 2, 3, and 4, Lifetime Achievement Award. Ichiro, first ballot, 99.7, no question about it. 3 of these 4 are the era. What's the term here? I like the terminology. Classic Baseball Era Committee. They need to give out their own award. The Classic Baseball Era Committee needs to give out its own award, but it's not a Hall of Famer. CC, as much love as I have for him, the Yankees, not for me. Ichiro is a Hall of Famer. 10 All-Stars. Okay, I need, like, I can maybe live with 9, but I need to see 10 All-Stars. What am I talking about here, folks? Let me put this in perspective here. Because let's who are you? You're just a guy. You only go to Cape League games. You didn't even play baseball. You say all that stuff. What am I talking about here? Let's take a look. Let's take a look here. What I'm talking about and what the Hall of Fame represents. Fourteen-time All-Star. 7-time MVP. 8-time Golden Glove winner. 12-time Silver Slugger. 3-time Hank Aaron Award winner. 2-time batting champion. 2-time home run leader. Led the majors in RBIs once. Who am I talking about? That's right, Barry Bonds. That's right, folks out there. I'm talking about Barry Bonds. Okay. Steroid era. We're talking about it. They're not getting in. Baseball holding. I got no problem with that. No problem with that. You have the records. You're holding it against the players. Make them wait. Fine. Eventually, because baseball was complicit in the steroid era, let's remember that, Clemens and Bonds need to be in. Clemens and Bonds need to be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. They do. Some of the others, But that's what the Hall of Fame is about. This is 1 Hall of Famer and 4 Lifetime Achievement Award winners. That's what this is. The committee, the Eras Committee, that needs to be a separate institution. That's the honorable mention. That's not the Hall of Fame. That's honorable mention, is what I'm saying. Honorable mention. That's what that is. And there's a difference. There's a difference between honorable, there's a difference between high honors, and there's a difference between honorable mention. They're 3 different categories. They're not 1 category, they're 3 categories. Ichiro is a Hall of Famer. The other 4, honorable mention. Nothing to do with the person and what they did in the community and what they had to struggle for in order to get to where they. That's not the conversation that we're having. This is the Hall of Fame. I just read you off a Hall of Famer's resume. That's what it's about. 14 All-Stars, 7 MVPs. Let's get some of that good again. 8 Golden Gloves, 12 Silver Sluggers, 3 Hank Aaron Award winners, 2 batting champions, 2 home run leaders, and led the majors in Hall of Famer. That's the Hall of Fame. And there's nothing wrong with folks not. Everybody doesn't climb Mount Everest because it's Mount Everest. Where is Jimmy Dugan when you need him? If it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. The hard is what makes it great. If everybody's great, nobody is great. Doesn't make you less of a person. But that's what we're talking about. Again, if this was the NBA, all like these guys would all be first ballot. This is the NBA. I credit baseball with at least having a separate committee and guys having to wait. 10th ballot guys. Okay, I'm glad you got your day in the sun. Okay, respect to you. And no, this is no people. And people take it personally. You're, this person worked hard. You're assassin. None of that. I'm talking about the Hall of Fame. That's what I'm talking about. If you want to, make this into some ad hominem rant, be my guest. That's not what it is. It's about a standard, a gold standard. Right? You can have a gold standard. You can have a silver standard. You can have a bronze standard. You can have an NBA standard, which is lower than all three of those. Congrats, respect to everybody. For my money, this is Ichiro and the field. It's the Hall of Fame. It's not the Hall of Friends. All right, we're going to finish up as we do around here with Slice of Life. To wrap things up on this check-in, pretty cool. So where do we begin? Okay, let's start with the preps. Go from there. Slice of Life is being delayed here. After that, okay, let's stay with baseball. Talking about the Hall of Fame, let's talk about a battle between two all-star level. We're not going to just throw out Hall of Fame like it's nothing. Let's talk about a battle in baseball.
Right away, and Sheffield's like, whoa, time. I wasn't fully ready. Pedro knew that. Or he's just messing with Pedro. They're messing with each other. So pitch hasn't been thrown yet. Sheffield wags his bat. First pitch, it's going to be a breaking ball on the outside, doesn't get the strike, brings it a little in, gets the strike, goes back outside, doesn't get the chase, and then he's going to throw another one outside. Hot shot, foul ball, almost hits Luis Sojo, who skips over it. It's corralled over there. He has a big laugh, chain, smiling, having fun. Ooh, little shimmy. And then we go back where Sheffield wags the best time. A late time call in Pedro's delivery again. And Pedro's like, fuck that. This is a first inning. He says, screw that. Curveball? No. Whatever that is, no. Outside fastball? No. Changeup? No. Inside fastball? Yes, please. And then rears back and hits him.
Oh, yeah.
He says, chain, smiling, having fun. Ooh, little shimmy. And then we go back where Sheffield wags the best time. A late, don't be doing that to me.
Yeah.
Not to me. You don't want to.
Now, if he hit me, I'm going to go up there and I'm gonna drop him on his shoulder. I stepped out the box the first time. I knew it pissed him off. And I knew when he threw that first curveball, I said, he's going to hit me. I said, now I'm going to do it again. Stepped out again. He throws another curveball. And it was already set up to where Ryan, anybody knows about baseball. And when somebody trying to hit you, they know they're going to throw a breaking ball away first and then may do it again to set you up to drill you like he did. But when I was going to first base, I was saying to myself, Pedro knows how I act out here on the field. If he make any gesture, his lips move or his eyes move or anything move and say anything, I'm coming like a raging bull. And as you notice, he just stared because he's heard my interviews before. Yeah. Because I tell him, you don't get to hit me for free. And if I look at you and stare at you, if you even indicate something, I'm coming. And that's how I decide when I charge and when I don't. And now, if he hit me, I'm gonna go up there and I'm gonna drop him on his shoulder. I stepped out the box the first time. I knew it pissed him off, and I knew when he threw that first curveball, I said, he's gonna hit me. I said, now I'm gonna do it again. Stepped out again. He throws another curveball. And it was already set up to where Ryan, anybody knows about baseball. And when somebody trying to hit you, they know they're going to throw a breaking ball away first and then may do it again to set you up to drill you like he did. But when I was going to first base, I was saying to myself, Pedro knows how I act out here on the field.
Good battle. Pedro and Sheffield. Some insider baseball stuff. I want to stay on the theme. Right? Hall of Fame and dominance, what it looks like over time. Yeah. Let's take a look.
Gooden, the 9th teenager to play for the New York Mets and the 3rd youngest pitcher the Mets have ever had. Dwight is the youngest player in the National League, 19 years of age. Fastball struck him out, so Dwight Gooden gets his first major league strikeout. He had 300 of them last year at Lynchburg.
So Dwight, one strike away from making Mets history as the youngest pitcher to pitch a shutout.
Strike three did it. He struck out the side in the bottom of the ninth. 11 strikeouts in the game for Dwight Gooden as he picks up his first complete game and first shutout, and of what should be many more to come.
And Dwight Gooden takes over on the mound. So he becomes the youngest man ever to play in the All-Star game, 19, 2 years out of high school. One of the brilliant young Met pitchers, leads the majors in strikeouts at the All-Star break. 2-2 pitch to Parrish. Got him swinging. So Dwight Gooden leading the bigs in strikeouts. Strikes Parrish out on a 91-mile-an-hour pitch.
This Gooden is amazing.
And he strikes him out. Gooden with 133 strikeouts in 111 innings this season.
19 years old.
And Gooden strikes out the side. Dwight Gooden, 2 years out of high school, 2 years ago in Tampa, Florida. And at the age of 19, comes into the All-Star game and strikes out the side.
You watch this kid pitch, Earl, it must be amazing, even to you as a great manager who had so many great ones. The poise, the maturity, the sense of presence out there.
So much poise and such outstanding rhythm he has. Drives right through, comes right down the field.
So Dwight Gooden with 11 strikeouts is 1 out away from carrying the Cub lead to 6. A check swing looper of Kindo picks it up and throws him out. And all of the Mets come out to congratulate the brilliant Dwight Gooden. 19 years old, strikes out 11, allows all.
Dwight Gooden, the 9th teenager to play for the New York Mets and the 3rd youngest pitcher the Mets have ever had. Dwight is the youngest player in the National League, 19 years of age.
What greatness looks like.
Fastball struck him out, so Dwight Gooden gets his first major league strikeout. He had 300 of them last year at Lynchburg.
So Dwight, one strike away from making Mets history as the youngest pitcher to pitch a shutout.
Strike three did it. He struck out the side in the bottom of the ninth. 11 strikeouts in the game for Dwight Gooden as he picks up his first complete game and first shutout, and of what should be many more to come.
Back when they let you pitch complete games and secure shutouts. Right? Speaking of the Hall of Fame, speaking of greatness, now stretch that out 10 plus years. Okay. Did Dwight have the longevity? Unfortunately not. But that's greatness. Those other, some of the players that I would put in honorable mention, 7 years, couple highlight years. A Hall of Fame is extended throughout a career. Okay, so there's a difference. We see the glimpse of it there. 5 years, 7 years, that's a very good career. You're a starter, you're a champion, so on and forth. Hall of Fame is a whole nother level. Steph Curry.
It seemed like you have to have certain prerequisites or a crazy life story in order to be successful in this world. But the truth is you really don't. It doesn't matter where you come from, what you have or don't have, what you lack, what you have too much of. But all you need to have is faith in God, an undying passion for what you do, and a relentless drive and the will to do whatever it takes to be successful in whatever you put your mind to. People make it seem like you have to have certain prerequisites or a crazy life story in order to be successful in this world. But the truth is you really don't. It doesn't matter where you come from, what you have or don't have, what you lack, what you have too much of. But all you need to have is faith in God, an undying passion for what you do, and a relentless drive and the will to do whatever it takes to be successful in whatever you put your mind to. People make it seem like you have.
I play this and I appreciate Steph saying it because, this is Mr. Not Ranked here. Mr. Not explosive enough, not tough enough. He's soft. He's not built for this. Okay, this idea that because he came from a nuclear family, had support, you get a similar sense with Grant Hill. Grant Hill talking about, some of the unnecessary statements related to black players at Duke and this perception that they were quote unquote Uncle Toms. Grant Hill debunks that. Wrote a good article in the New York Times when that situation was playing itself out. Let's see what we'll conclude. Right, the different journeys. Okay. We'll go over to football, but Steph here.
You have to have certain prerequisites or a crazy life story in order to be successful in this world. But the truth is you really don't. It doesn't matter where you come from, what you have or don't have, what you lack, what you have too much of. But all you need to have is faith in God, an undying passion for what you do, and a relentless drive and the will to do whatever it takes to be successful in whatever you put your mind to. People make it seem
bullseye. Okay. Well said. You don't have to other folks that come from means and insinuate that they cannot achieve great things, along with just the basic blueprint that he outlined. Remember, Alexander the Great was the son of Philip II. Does that make him any less great? Don't think so. All right, we'll conclude. Again, talking about the journey, the hunger.
Dad was a great wrestler. I found out we had this tournament my sophomore year, and there's this huge guy. He was my dad, actually wrestling coach at Kathleen Senior in 1975. So he walked up to me without ever meeting me and handed me this book. And I opened up the page, and the first page was my father's picture and every one of his records. And he had every record. And I looked at it and I said, oh my gosh, like this is my father. And look at what he done. And guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna shatter every record that he's ever had.
Why are you obsessed of erasing your dad's name?
One of the greatest things most children deal with is the absence of a father. And I was so set on proving to someone who left me that I was gonna figure it out. Because as a man, to this day, I can tell you, I've never had a father grab me and say, "Great job, Ray. Oh my gosh, you did it." And so those times when I was going through that, I wanted to erase what that felt like. And I thought the only way to erase that was to erase everything that he had done. I was like, okay, I got my motivation. And so I went at it. My father didn't win the state. There had never been a state champion at Kathleen. Stephen Poole grabbed my arm. I knew that I could do anything I wanted to do.
You raised your hand as a champion.
Yeah, and I became the first ever state champion.
How did it feel to erase Dad's records?
And it felt amazing to do something that the circumstances say you couldn't do it. Father wasn't around, couldn't get that confirmation. Everybody else, you're too small. You can't make it happen. You can't be the first state champion to ever do it. And I said, okay, keep talking. And so every step of the way, what I learned, Dan, was to become a master at anything that I entertained.
Did you know your dad was a great wrestler?
I found out we had this tournament.
I didn't know Ray Lewis wrestled. But again, a different journey, a different hunger and perspective. One more slice of life. Let's go outside of the world of sports.
I don't want to bum everybody out listening or watching this, but I'm a little bit of a failed actor. You know, I acted for many years. I was acting. I still continue to act, but it's funny. My acting career has gone through a couple of downturns, you know, and currently I'm in an acting downturn. And luckily, my representation has stayed with me. And my representation are the ones who said, hey, a seat just opened up on this show, The Talk. You should go for that seat. And it's funny, when you hear that, your first reaction is, I'm not doing a talk show. I'm an actor. Like, that's not why I hired you as my agent. I hired you as my agent to get me acting gigs. And luckily, I was open enough to the universe to say, oh, yeah, I can sit there for a month or two. You know, they need someone. And then I guess I did a good job for a month or two because they said, we'd like to hire you to a multi-year contract and pay you money to do this, and you'll have a job. And so I think the most astonishing thing to me is how I have no control over my professional life. That's crazy. That's crazy, because I thought coming in here as a young man, I was I control everything. I'm in charge of where I go.
I'm in charge of me.
I'm in charge of me. I'm going to decide whether I'm acting or not. And I'll stop acting when I say I'm stopping acting. Steve, I have no control of anything.
But you have something that other people don't in this town, and that's some stability. You know, if you're signed to a 4 or 5 year contract, you know you're going to get a check for a while.
I have stability currently right now, but really I have no stability in the long run. I mean, I just don't. That's what I'm trying to say. I have no control of this thing. You know, I don't want to bum everybody out listening or watching this, but I'm
certainly not bummed out. Honest perspective, right? We got two Chef Curry, NBA champion, Mountaintop. Ray Lewis, NFL champion, Hall of Famer, Mountaintop. Finished with a story from a different field, but, you know, this is everybody else. Okay, we latch on to the greats. But there's certainly not only one person on a team. Basketball, 14, 15. Football, 60, 70, right? Talk about it in the NFL, right? Handful of guys making money. Everybody else, thousandaires that are in the same situation that he's talking about. Okay? And those that, more so in football, but also in basketball, we got the Fred VanVleets of the world, the G League, you know, to major contracts. That happens a good amount. But that's their life. Okay. That uncertainty and how it impacts you. people around him kept confidence in him to give him an opportunity that turned out well. So that's super helpful to have a support system that believes in you, to keep you in the game. But honest and helpful perspective about, everyone shows up ready to be Steph Curry. Everyone shows up ready to be Ray Lewis. We all show up to be the next Hall of Famer. But how many Hall of Famers are there? Right? It's the Hall of Fame. So it's a select few that are going to have that trajectory. The best of the rest are far closer to Mr. Jerry O'Donovan. We need you when we need you. We don't need you when we don't need you. Okay? And, right, that's like that clip. It kind of gets to that middle that we're looking for. Never mind the shrinking middle class in society. But, okay, so if I'm not going to be a Hall of Famer, I don't want to be down and out. Okay, where can I find that word that he used, stability, there? And what does stability look like? And the last thing that I'll add to that, what does take care of some of the anxiety, so on and forth. Hey, man, bottom line, you got to write your own role. You know, you can't expect somebody else to have your vision. So then I go to the Matty D's, the Matt Damons of the world, go to the Tyler Perrys of the world. And the last person, Jordan Peele's of the world, Get Out, classic, right? Bottom line, if you gotta, if it's not, and you shouldn't really expect it to come from the universe. You gotta branch out to now. Everything's not going to be a Good Will Hunting or a Rocky, for sure. But so what? After a number of drafts and building it up, who's to say? We got to stop sharing the screen. You know what this is, folks. Thank you. We're going to breeze on out. SandCity. Go. I'm your host.